All right, you guys have seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail. It has dawned on you that I am not a big fan of the latest live action Disney remake, Lilo and Stitch. But the big thing here is I went in with high hopes. I am not trying to be a hater. I have watched pretty much every other Disney live action remake, not enjoyed them. But I've kept my mouth shut up until now because, in my opinion, you do not mess with Stitch. I rewatched the original Lilo and Stitch very recently in anticipation for this new one. And for this new one, I was going in hoping it at least stood on its own, you know, and I was going into it with an open mind. I loved the marketing material for this movie. Like, I genuinely went in with high hopes. They have the original voice actor for Stitch back. I loved all the posters. I loved the visual design. This was the first Disney live action remake where I've seen where the CGI and the visual style doesn't feel bland and soulless. It actually feels like it has direction and exciting camera work and like actually a sort of live action story that makes sense. You know, it's not one of those ones where I'm shaking my head being like, why would you make this a live action movie? And unfortunately, I really enjoyed this movie for literally the first 5 minutes. For the first 5 minutes, I was full of hope. I thought the visual space design was lovely. I really liked the textured look of all the aliens and the sets around them. Like, for a live action remake, there was a surprising amount of color, and I also loved the detail. These aliens felt icky and slimy and surreal in a really good way. I was genuinely really surprised the fact that like one of these soulless Disney live action remakes actually sort of felt like it had some weird, kooky creative direction. Like, for example, right, the live action version of that bigger henchman alien, the one with like 6 eyes, he feels like he has receding hair. His forehead looks slimy and it almost looks over textured. It looks like this live action version of Homer Simpson that I'll flash here. It is gross. He feels out of place. If you put him in a real world Earth context, it looks kind of scary in like a really interesting way. And similarly, his sidekick, the Mike Wazowski with 6 legs that's walking around, the anthropod or whatever, also looks really slimy and gooey, and I loved it. I loved the creature design. I loved the spaceship design. I had really high hopes. Even that like blue alien with like the bone collar thing. I was really impressed. And the reason I say I was really impressed, it might be a low bar because I recently, only like a week or two ago, watched the live action Snow White and I thought it was just atrocious. Especially the design of the dwarves. Like, I was kind of holding out on good faith and seeing the best in Rachel Zegler's performance, but the moment those CGI dwarves came out, I actually thought I was in a waking nightmare. So yeah, initially Lilo and Stitch starts and I was like really high on it. And then as the movie went on, just more and more things slowly added up to create an experience that ultimately did not work for me. The good. I thought the performances for the main cast were actually quite excellent. So I thought Nani in particular, Lilo's older sister, was fantastic. I thought she was easily the best performance in the movie. On top of that, I thought the guy they have playing Cobra, Bubbles, he was in O.J. Simpson, the O.J. Simpson series. He's fantastic. I also thought Zach Galifianakis, who was borderline unrecognizable for most of this movie, he plays the human version of the big alien, the one with 6 eyes, the gooey textured one. I thought he was really good. He was like a nice surprise. Didn't expect him. Also, the familiar face that pops up playing the human version of the one-eyed alien, I thought he was great too. In fact, even though I know the choice to have these aliens switch to human versions instead of being aliens in disguise, which we will get to in the negatives, even though that has been frowned upon by true fans, I do think the human counterparts were like really well cast, particularly this younger one that plays the human counterpart of the one-eyed alien. He actually kind of, in his face, embodies the vibe and the tonality and the texture in his like human face. Like, it's just really good facial acting, but I was really impressed there. Now, Lilo's performance is a bit of a mixed bag. It's funny, normally with child actors, They do really well with like childish, over the top emotions, and then struggle with the sad, more heartfelt moments because it's asking more of an actor or actress. Whereas in this case, I actually thought she completely nailed the sad, somber moments. Like, absolutely crushed it. The moments that didn't quite land for me were just the moments where she was trying to be over the top and heightened. So, like this shot in the trailer where she screams when first seeing Stitch. And this moment, it's in the original as well, where Lilo and Nani have like a big fight. The whole like, go to your room. I'm already in my room. For some reason, that wasn't really landing. And I think it's also, but I can't really blame the actors here because one of my big issues with this movie is the script. And I feel like maybe some of these performances were held back by the script. On top of that, I thought the camera work and the visual style, weirdly enough, actually reminded me of Edgar Wright films. So in the opening 5 to 10 minutes, I noticed that there were these like cutaway gags where the camera would like flash across the screen and go to like a weird Family Guy-esque cutaway gag just to flash back. And then there's this intensity in the kind of fight scene, the chase scene between Lilo and her older sister, where the older sister's breaking into the house and like it zooms in very quickly on like the deadbolt that's locking the door and like zooms after Lilo. I really liked the camera work. I thought it was really expressive. I like the color grading. I thought in terms of all the technical aspects, the music, the sound, the visual, the colors, I thought it was all a substantial step up from these usual live action Disney remakes. It was the first one that I actually didn't hate to look at, didn't hate to witness, and actually felt like it had a very good sense of style and identity, especially for those first 10 minutes. The big issue here is the changes and just basically what they do with the story here. Now, I went into this with an open mind. I think the thing is, normally I am someone who wants changes, all right? So I'm not someone who agrees with the whole idea that if something is changed from a book to a movie, it's automatically bad, as long as those changes make sense for the visual medium or I can kind of see the vision, you know? Like, I don't get too butthurt about like, oh, that's my favorite thing, because at the end of the day, you have that thing. Like, I'm not mad if they change things from a book or an original movie if it makes sense. For example, I really liked the recent Speak No Evil remake, and I liked it better because of what it changed. You know, I was glad that it wasn't just a carbon copy. The thing is, with these Disney live action remakes, I don't think they're trying to reinvent the wheel. I don't think they're trying to do a sort of like adaptation the way Stanley Kubrick did with The Shining and completely like restructure and gut the story and turn into something new. They are obviously trying to basically just give you a nostalgia hit and give you that thing you love as a child and let it translate for a new audience. I am going to be honest. I genuinely think the better approach that Disney could be taking is just an upscale of these original movies. I would love to run an experiment, genuinely. Sit my child down, you know, use my future child as a guinea pig and put in front of them a 4K restoration of the original Lilo and Stitch, maybe play the trailer and then play the trailer for the live action and see which one they pick. Because truthfully, I think the kid is going to choose the animated one every single time. There is a reason the animation medium is usually associated with kids' films. You know, and it's this recent thing to make them more adult. It's something that was initially made for kids. I think kids like it. I think every single kid, their favorite part of this movie is going to be the animated Stitch running around or the CGI Stitch running around. And I don't know, man. Anyways, moving back to it, the reason I'm really struggling with this movie is the changes here are bizarre and perplexing. Now, not all of them bad. So we're going to get into some light spoilers, but if you've seen the original, it's essentially the same story. But they do make a few changes. Now, the first one is one that I didn't hate initially. It's the fact that these alien henchmen that are going after Stitch transform into humans for most of the movie. Now, on one end, I assume this was maybe a budgetary thing, maybe a time restraint thing. But my big concern, all right, so initially I didn't hate the idea. I kind of went with it and I appreciated the kind of gags that came from it. But my big concern here was, what if the director was like, oh, we can't pull that off properly? That would look silly. The reason I didn't like that idea is it reminded me of when Jon Favreau did the live action remake of Lion King and still had lions talking to one another, but then said that a monkey going like this with the chalk was too unrealistic or something. There was something they didn't do, and I thought it was really strange. And what do you know? In an interview, the director has said, "Yeah, we wanted to do the whole aliens just in like a wig thing, but we thought just in live action it didn't really work. It just looked unrealistic and kind of silly." It is silly, dude. It is silly. Like, this whole movie is built on gags where, like, an alien blue French bulldog somehow passes as a pet in an animal shelter. Like, people kind of go, "Are you sure that's a dog?" But that's about it. That's as far as the line of questioning goes for 99% of the population. Like, that's a running gag. I don't think aliens putting on a wig and a dress and still having their little tentacles out on the side and people out of politeness not wanting to comment on it completely breaks the reality of this movie. I think it would have actually been hilarious, especially given how textured and uncomfortable these aliens' new look are. Like, I genuinely think, and it's a weird reference point, I know, but if you guys have seen The Substance, when that movie takes a turn and there's that new thing that is presented, right, and it shows up to the fashion show, there's that joke where someone goes like, "Oh yeah, right that way." Right that way. It's a great gag. I think this movie could have been full of those gags. So I didn't hate the change, but I kind of hate the change given what the director has said. On top of that, some bigger changes that I can't stand. One of my favorite things about that original Lilo and Stitch movie is the tension and the weight with the conflicts between Lilo and her older sister. They actually have weight and gravitas when they are arguing, when they are beefing. Just the voice acting alone and the way it's structured and the animation, it really feels like they are actually having sibling beef. And it's heart-wrenching and it's a lot. And you feel the weight of what Nani is going through trying to make sure Lilo is okay and not lose custody. And in this one, they play like jolty music over it and they try and soften the blow, and I think it's really a shame. I think the original Lilo and Stitch, looking back on it, I was surprised at what a empowering kind of story it is about, you know, what family members will do for one another and how far they'll go and how much they'll put on the line. And, you know, the realities that like a lot of people face that aren't from, you know, worlds where things just work out for them after their parents seemingly pass away. Now, with positives, there are two things I really love, two big things that they changed in this movie that I really appreciated. The first one was, in a great moment of quiet visual storytelling, there is a scene where Lilo is going through a photo album with Stitch. Now, I know they did that in the original, but they flesh it out here more. Now, on one end, they do full on explain what happened to the parents, whereas that was more of a mystery in the first one. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I can go either way on it. I actually kind of like it. I like the beefed out lore, and it'll be something I think about when I go back to the original Lilo and Stitch. But more so, I loved this section where child Lilo is going through the photo album and she's looking at younger photos of Nani when Nani used to be this incredible surfer. She used to compete in surfing. I believe this is an addition that wasn't in the original one. And she's talking about like, "Oh, my sister used to be so full of life. She used to be so much fun. We used to do this, we used to do that. And now she's all serious." And on one end, that's going to work for children, right? Children are going to be like, "Oh, it would suck if my sister stopped being fun." But for adults, that's actually something like mature audience members can glean that obviously Nani had to step up in a parent role and has had to put a lot on the line to raise Lilo, and you're seeing it through Lilo's eyes, and Lilo is too, you know, naive to realize what that truly means and just goes, "Oh, my sister's a bit bitchy now," whatever. But like, it's just really good storytelling, and it was a change that I thought was great. And I think the surfing backstory and what she had to give up, and even giving up being a marine biologist, was actually really well done. However, one of my biggest beefs with this movie is the fact that the ending and the amount of stuff they have to add in here to get to this ending betrays, in my opinion, the original message of Lilo and Stitch. This idea that like Ohana family means leaving no one behind. You know, all this thing of like some people. It's not necessarily a story about being stuck in poverty, but it's a story about like sometimes you have to put family first, and it comes at a cost. And like I just think it was so well explored in the original. They add this neighbor character, and I hate what it represents. The character itself is not funny. It's played by the woman from Cat in the Hat that played the babysitter. And they do this with a few characters in this movie. They split the social worker in half as well. There's a female social worker, and then there's Cobra Bubbles. So instead of Cobra Bubbles being the social worker, and then the twist that he's also in the CIA and knows about aliens, they've split it. So now you have a female social worker and Cobra Bubbles. And the female social worker, truthfully, just feels like an auntie. Just feels like an auntie that's like, yo, you kind of need to get health insurance and all this other stuff sorted. And you're a bit like, what the fuck? Like, it feels like they have more of a family. It doesn't feel like this weird, really serious presence like it did in the first one. But on top of that, this neighbor character now feels like a grandma. So what initially felt like a really isolated unit of two sisters and a weird alien blue French bulldog now feels like a fully fleshed out family. It feels like they have an auntie and the social worker, and the serious social worker is Cobra Bubbles. And then they have this neighbor who just shows up and knows everything and is there for them. The neighbor is the one. Why would you change this? The neighbor is the one that decides to get a dog instead of it being Nani in a moment of desperation to connect with Lilo and hearing the prayer and the wish that was made upon the star. It's now this neighbor being like, yeah, I'm gonna take you for some fucking reason. Like, what type of neighbor is gonna take Lilo to get a random ass blue alien without the sister's consent, when they're both all concerned about like what the sister has on her plate trying to take care of Lilo? It's insane. And then the worst moment is at the end of the movie, the big dilemma of like, you know, them coming together and Nani still taking care of her is just taken off their hands, off their plate, because the neighbor just goes, oh, you know what, you are fucked. You have really fucked up, Nani. And Lilo's about to be taken away. So what we'll do, she can live with us. She can live with me and the hot guy that you're sort of boning. And it's like, if it's that easy, why haven't you done this whole time? What is going on? So they're like, we'll take Lilo so she doesn't get taken away. And also on top of that, Nani, I know you've put off going to uni and college for marine biology for like 5-6 years, but you can go do that now. It's like, why didn't you bust out this power move before? Like, what? And I just feel like it completely betrays the original identity of the movie, right? Which was this tight little sister unit with Stitch. I think it's really, really a shame. Now, I'll end it on a positive. Now, this is full spoilers. Leave if you don't want full spoilers. But my favorite moment of this movie, and I wish this was done better, is there is this moment where Stitch sinks to the bottom, all right? So at the end of the movie, instead of doing the full alien chase sequence, instead it is kind of briefly a space thing, but then they crash and Stitch and Lilo start drowning, and Stitch swims to the bottom to get Lilo out, and now Stitch, because he's so dense, he's so heavy, is now at the bottom of the ocean. And she swims up to safety, Nani finds her, and Stitch is just sitting there for quite some time, sitting there at the bottom of the ocean floor, just kind of being like, oh, well, at least I saved Lilo. And he seems almost content with his fate, and he just kind of like sits there for a while at peace. There's no more destruction. And it was so good. It was fantastic. And it's so good that I almost wish this was the final act of the original Lilo and Stitch. It's that good. But the big thing here with this movie, the reason it didn't work for me, is everything moves too quickly. I know this movie's longer. I don't know where the time went. I was talking with my fiance in the car home. I was like, I definitely didn't fall asleep, but somehow this movie just felt really rushed. There's moments early on that had me worried. In the original, there's that moment where the ship is crash landing and they're like, oh, well, it's going to land in water. And then they slowly realize it'll land on land. In this one, it's like, oh, well, at least it'll crash on water. Oh, no, it's land. Like, it doesn't quite land. And then later on in the movie, there's a moment where they're like, oh, do you think it can hear? Stitch instantly turns around. The editing doesn't quite work. And then there's this moment where there's this it's like a great idea for a gag where Stitch invades a wedding to get the wedding cake. But it's cut so fast and there's no tension and no payoff. There's no like, oh my God, imagine how horrifying it would be if you were in a wedding party and this weird alien blue French bulldog shows up and eats your wedding cake. It's so quick that it just doesn't land. Like the entire audience I saw it with, which was an audience full of like Disney adults, didn't even have time to laugh. None of the gags in that sequence landed. And then as the movie went on, I turned to my fiance and said, you know what, if I hadn't seen the original film, I'd actually be struggling to connect with this. Like, they are technically telling us everything we need to know to connect with this story, and the social work stuff is done sort of okay. But stuff like Nani trying to find a job, Lilo's loneliness, the tension between them is so rushed through. It's like, yes, technically they did say it. Yes, technically they did mention it. But none of it's felt, none of it's sat with. The only moment that feels still and tender are those two moments I really liked. The photo book moment and the moment where Stitch is underwater. Everything else, it's like there's no tension there. It moves so fast and so quick through all this meaty character stuff. And somehow, in an 86-minute animated movie like the original Lilo and Stitch, these moments felt really earned. Like, I didn't feel any connection between Nani and her kind of boyfriend squeeze guy. I didn't feel the tension between Lilo and Nani. I just and even the tension with the social worker wasn't really felt because they split Cobra and the actual social worker into two different characters. The job hunt, like it all just really quickly moved. It has a really weird rhythm where it's like technically it is ticking off every box, but to me it felt like, yeah, if I hadn't seen the original film, if someone then described major plot points from this movie, I'd be like, did that happen? Oh yeah, no, it did. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, that almost need to jog my memory because it's just so many conversations are just rushed through and sped through, and I have no idea why. It's really quite strange, and that's really my big disconnect with this movie. I was kind of really enjoying it at the start, and then as the movie went on, it was just moment after moment after moment didn't quite land. The again, that opening fight scene just really kind of rushes through itself, and my audience felt like they didn't know how to react to a bunch of scenes. Like, they couldn't tell whether they were meant to laugh or be sad, or like, it was just a bunch of people kind of sitting there looking at the screen a bit dumbfounded. And I think it's a shame because I even feel like we didn't get that much time with Stitch, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, aside from that beautiful moment underwater that I will think of all the time. But yeah, I don't know. 5 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like, do I recommend seeing this? Like, if you have a kid, if you're a Disney adult and you're really desperate, maybe you'll like it, but you can kind of get that feeling from the trailer. I think if your kid hasn't seen the movie, show them the original. Just dim the lights, put the $80 away for a family day to the movies into like a nice TV fund. And dim the lights and just show them Lilo and Stitch, the original, on Disney Plus. The upscaling looks pretty good. Yeah, really a shame because on one end there's a lot of effort here, but I just don't think it came together really well. So thank you so much for watching. I'm surprised I'm this passionate about like a Disney live action remake. I didn't realize how much I like the original until I was watching this and being like, oh, that was a weird choice. That was a weird choice. What are you doing? No. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this video and you'd like me to if you'd like to hear me talk about everything I watch in a given week or fortnight. I do a weekly, fortnightly, monthly podcast, talk about everything I watch in a given week, fortnight, or month, depending when I upload. On top of that, that's for members and Patreon only. The links will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day.